In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern where there is some chances for snowfall even leading up to Christmas. I feel like this is being understated throughout a lot of forecasts. We still have a threat for the 20th through 21st. I'm going to explain that in just a little bit. And also for Christmas Day in some areas of the Mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, Northeast, there could be some snow flying on Christmas Day actually now, which is pretty crazy in and of itself. Now, this is a little bit of a late night special. I do apologize. Also, we missed a video yesterday. I went out of town with my dad all day yesterday, and I've kind of just been getting some things done throughout the day today. It's been a wonderful time for me, and thankfully nothing much has changed in the forecast between yesterday and today, so I think it was fine, but I had a great time with him. That was obviously great. So we're going to dive into things. We're looking at the past 20 days of temperatures because I only have 15 and 20 day increments. If I could do 17, I would do that. But I can only do 15 or 20, unfortunately. So we are taking a look here at kind of the final days of November into the rest of December that we've had so far, and we can see that there's been a cold flow from basically south central Canada in through the northern plains and upper Midwest, flowing straight into the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, southeast, and northeast here. And then we've primarily had a warm area for the west, and we call this a positive PNA. That stands for Pacific North American Oscillation, and really all you need to know about that is it means warm temperatures over Western North America. This in turn, because winds move from west to east, causes cold in the eastern portions of North America, and you can see that that is what resulted. If we would have seen colder temperatures throughout the west of North America, it's very, very likely that it would have been the opposite here in the east. We would have seen warmth here in the east. So that is why that is so important, this warm area here in the west. Now, as we take a look at the 6 to 10 day outlook from the National Weather Service, this is for the 23rd through the 27th. We're starting to warm up, and really the only areas holding on to primarily colder temperatures overall is going to be this eastern seaboard area. Kind of the 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd has primarily been that area that we've been watching for cold air, and then beyond is when we've been expecting a warm up. I've been quoted as saying, you know, after Christmas looks very, very warm, and I'm going to say that today we've gained confidence in that a lot. That is looking to be a very warm period. The 3, 4, 5, maybe more days following Christmas will likely be very warm in the east. As you can see, it's going to be very warm throughout these kind of central regions and some of the northwestern regions here. And I mean, really, for the most part, we expect all of these areas to be overall warmer during that 23rd to 27th time frame. In the 8 to 14 day outlook, 25th through 31st, that period that we were just talking about, the warmth primarily moves eastward. We see these upper Midwest areas, Great Lakes at the heart of it, the plains as well, but also the eastern seaboard now warmer than normal for the 25th through 31st. I do not think this is going to push us into the warmer than average direction for December. I think that even if this does occur like this straight from Christmas to the final day of December, I think we will still end up with a colder month overall for the month of December in a lot of the eastern states. So that is what's going to go down. As we take a look here at our GFS model, we're going to explain that 20th through 21st potential snowfall threat that has trended further and further west every single run, and it's kind of inching towards being something to pay attention to. Originally, this is the storm that had the potential to be a blizzard just before Christmas for a lot of areas of the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, even the Southeast, and we have since then see it trend out to sea towards the east, which we did note was a possibility. It was only ever a possibility, and we've seen it trend away. Now, the last few days, we've seen it trending closer and closer to being back to where it was. I don't think it's going to get all the way there and be a major, major snowstorm for the entire eastern seaboard, but I do think that the potential for some snowfall is increasing and it needs to be paid attention to. Let's take a look, and we're just going to start tomorrow afternoon, I think, since this video is coming out so late, and we already see this positive PNA we just learned about building for the west. Warmer temperatures out west, we see this really growing, and instantly we see the cold funneled towards the east here. So colder air is going to be on its way here for the 18th already, kind of solidifying for the 19th and beyond a little bit. We do see some interior snowfall, and that's going to be for areas of Canada up here, and then also for Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York here for Wednesday afternoon. As we head overnight, we see this intensifies to where we see northern Pennsylvania into areas of upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, even the Berkshires there of Massachusetts, perhaps, seeing heavy snowfall. And this could be a hefty snowstorm. This is snowstorm number 1, if you remember when we were kind of breaking them down. Storm potential 1, 2, and 3. This is number 1. So this one is kind of still looking very similar to how we originally expected it. We do see perhaps the beginning of a clipper system starting out there in the northern plains as well. That kind of, as we reach towards Thursday, stretches into the Midwest, northern plains. Moderate snowfall, kind of quick-lived, could bring an inch, 2, 3 for some folks. Now, that is the northern piece of energy for Storm 2 here. So that northern piece of energy, and then the southern piece of energy is right here, and we can see that the southern piece has really outpaced the northern piece, so the interaction there is kind of minimal. But I will say this is considerably closer together than what we've seen the last few days, and what we're going to see is some snowfall in these areas. Again, don't get too excited. We need some trends to work in our favor here, but this is by the time we're reaching 7 p.m. of Friday, December 20th, we see a low still relatively far offshore, but because that clipper system was also moving through, we do see snow showers with some moderate snowfall in areas for like West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York there, even northern New Jersey into southern New England. There is a lot of cold air in these areas, and I think that if we had heavy precipitation, these areas would even be potentially snowfall, or at least some of them. Sometimes the heavy precipitation can pull the colder temperatures that are up in the upper areas, like where the clouds are forming and everything, and the precipitation is forming. Heavy precipitation can pull that down and cool things down at the surface even further. But when you only have this like sporadic showers, it tends to be rainfall, even if the surface is very close to freezing, because you're not getting that pull from up above from that heavier precipitation. So I do think that if we saw, like, let's say the low right here, just a tick to the west, 20, 30, 40 miles, something like that, it would look a little bit more snowy in this corridor here. But it could easily trend in the other direction as well, and that needs to be noted also. But cold air is there. We can see that this positive PNA is stretching well up the western coast, up into Canada, and this cool down is extending way down into like North Carolina, South Carolina area, so they're pretty dramatic air masses here. Let's take a look at what happens later. And look at this heavy snowfall offshore of New England. This, if the low, again, was a little closer, would be over these areas, but it's just a little bit too far to the east. So if we see any trends, that's going to make a big difference. And there's just enough time these next 1-2 days or so for some changes like that to happen on the model guidance. We continue to see snow showers and cold around for like the 21st, Saturday. The coldest day might be Sunday the 22nd for the eastern seaboard, where we see this really brutal area of cold air stretching far down the South Carolina coast even. So very brutal cold for that 20th through 22nd time frame especially. What we start to see happening on the 22nd is some cold and snowy air start to spread in for the northwest, and this is kind of disrupting that typical positive PNA pattern, and we see this ridge is mostly centered over the central states. As we keep going, I'm going to show you what happens as we move towards the 23rd. Look at this. That cold air in the east starts to kind of spread away. We're seeing snowfall for the upper Midwest and Great Lakes here. And we're starting to see that cool down end in the east. So again, that's why that 23rd to, I forget what day it was, like 27th or 26th time frame on the 6 to 10 day outlook was warmer in the east, and kind of just holding on to some colder air for the immediate east coast, because we see this positive PNA come to an end right around the 23rd, right at the beginning of that forecast period. Now the Tuesday, the 24th, Christmas Eve period, we're seeing some snowfall for Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. So again, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast here, seeing some snowfall just before Christmas. And look at as we move into Christmas Eve night, this is 10 p.m., a lot of the northern half of Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, northern Ohio, into southern New England and southern New York, they're seeing some snowfall. Northern PA keeps it going. This is 10 a.m. on Christmas morning. We see some snow showers still going on for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, southern New England. That could bring a white Christmas to many folks. And Even Christmas night, New York, Northeast Pennsylvania, and into New England seeing some snowfall. Some warmer air works its way in immediately after for the 26th, 27th, and starts to switch things over to rain. And we're basically left with an opposite pattern, negative PNA. Look at the trough in the west, and then this immediate ridge in the east. So you can see how influential those western temperatures really are over our temperature pattern. We see cold and snow for the northwest and even the central west there, and instantly it's like we ricochet into this warmer pattern here in the east. Now, there's reason to believe that around or maybe just before New Year's, we might start to cool back down in the east. That's the initial model guidance that I'm seeing from the GFS European model. And in the very long range like that, which it is a very long range take, the ensembles are very crucial. The GFS and European models have their own ensemble models. And what that means is that, like for instance, this GFS model is a single model. The ensemble is taking like 20 to 30 of these that are slightly different from each other and then taking the mean average of what all of those would show. And you get kind of an averaged out look. It doesn't look very close to what happens because it's not typically as aggressive. When you get some of those members disagreeing with each other, it tends to average things out, is what I call it. But nevertheless, it's really useful for seeing overall patterns, and those do suggest a little bit of cold might be coming for the New Year timeframe. We're going to look at the European weeklies model, which is kind of an ensemble model, but a very long range one. At the very end of this video, actually, and that one does show cold for the beginning portion of January. So some reason to believe that early January, very late December could be favorable for cold and potentially snow. As we move towards Saturday the 28th, no big changes, but Sunday the 29th, we still have the cold and snow out west. It does look a little less cold. I think we have a little bit of a jet stream trough there in the west, but it's not as aggressive, and there's a little bit of a double dipping trough here in the east. So we're kind of split here, where we have some cold air spread around a little bit more and a little bit less aggressive. Heavy snowfall for the Rockies, Sierra Nevada, and Cascades still, though. Some rainfall along the eastern seaboard here as we approach New Year's. And then this is what happens. Monday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time, we start to see some warmer temperatures starting out for the southwest coast of the United States. And this is usually the beginning signs of a positive PNA, which if you've paid attention, and I've really hammered it home today, this should show cold moving eastward very, very shortly after this develops. So let's see if we do get that to come together here. So this is later on Monday into Tuesday. And not only do we have the cold air moving eastward, we actually have a frontal boundary here where that cold is really getting pulled in behind that. And it's actually getting pushed out as well by a fully developed now positive PNA by New Year's Eve here on December 31st, Tuesday. So let's take a look what happens Wednesday, January 1st, the first day of 2025. That's going to be crazy to say. And we have a full-blown positive PNA, a very, very intense one actually here. It's not stretching super far to the north, but it is expansive west to east. And we get this dip in the east here. As a result of that, some snowfall in the northeast as well. It's not the craziest looking trough, but it is a signal that cold air could be moving eastward. And especially when we consider, again, the ensemble support as well as the weeklies models, we definitely have a lot to suggest this. And really, when we end the model run here on Thursday, January 2nd, we do start to see maybe some cooler air moving back into the west with the warmth more centered over the central states, still some for the east. Really, really indecisive here. When we look at the European model, I want to check out, especially first off, our storm for the 18th, and we see snowfall for a lot less of Ohio, a lot less of Pennsylvania, but for New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and even western Massachusetts, we do see a good amount of snowfall there. Here comes the northern piece of energy here. Again, more of a clipper system with some snowfall for the Midwest or the upper Midwest and northern plains. We get this southern piece of energy here, and we need these to kind of come together. Is what would really be necessary for something to occur in this area. The further apart they are, the less intense overall we would see things be, obviously. Now, let's take a look as we move a little bit forward. Friday afternoon on the 20th of December. We still see some snow showers in here, but the northern piece of energy is a lot more separated than the GFS model, as you can see. We're a little further offshore there. This northern piece of energy is a lot less progressive, and overall the GFS model would be a lot closer to a snowstorm occurring than the European model here. Now, as we take a look at what happens next on the edge of my seat, we see it just continues to flow offshore, really, really far offshore, probably an extra 50 or 60 miles compared to what the GFS model has. We do have some snow showers in here for the morning of Saturday the 21st. It's very cold during that 20th to 23rd time frame, as I've mentioned, so this would be pretty realistic. Saturday, here comes Sunday the 22nd, Monday the 23rd, and this is when the cold starts to move out progressively. We do get a quick chance of an offshore storm as this cold is moving out. That brings snowfall in here. We saw this on the GFS model as well. So some additional snowfall happening here a little bit after Christmas on this one in particular. This is the daytime temperatures for Christmas. Here's the morning. So there are flakes flying for some of the Northeast, but there's no denying this is a little bit more underwhelming than the GFS model showed. But as we keep going, they do have something in common. Around the 27th, 28th, we see this positive PNA really take back off. We see this fully develop in here. And instantly we get some colder air moving eastward. Again, just like the GFS model, it's a lot less intense than what we were used to here over the last few weeks. But we do get this cold air moving in, and we actually get a coastal snowstorm right around New Year's, just a day prior, bringing some northeast snowfall here with that cold air. And basically, the main difference here from the GFS to the European model is we still have a full-blown positive PNA for January 1st, and we have a much more intense pocket of cold air now moving in for that first week of January, with a coastal storm still over the northeast. So more intense cold air on the way after that first blast for late December, according to this European model. Now we'll take a look at the European weeklies in just a minute. Like I mentioned, that's going to be really, really crazy stuff, but we see a high amount of precipitation expected for the Northwest through the next 15 days, and also a very healthy amount for the eastern states that really, really need it still. The anomalies here were close to average, if not a little bit above or below in these areas, mostly above in these green pockets, obviously, and a little bit below if you're further towards the southeast, but we do have a really good area of above average precipitation there in the Northwest. As we take a look here at the total snowfall in the GFS model, tons and tons and tons here for all of the mountainous west. Northern Plains, Upper Midwest, Great Lakes into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. We do get quite a bit from a few storms that move through. One coming up very soon over the coming days. One potentially close to the 20th, 21st, and then one around Christmas Day here. Let's take a look at the European model, and it's very similar. I mean, I'm changing these right now, and we're seeing very similar results. The main difference, I would say, isn't over the Northern Plains, Upper Midwest, Great Lakes. It's mostly over the Northeast here, where this model, over the course of the entire model run, has feet for New England. Green Mountains, White Mountains there, Northern Mountains of Maine, even the Adirondacks here, seeing 1 to 2 feet of snowfall at least on this model run through 15 days. A lot more snowy of a look here on this European model for that pocket, and that's the main difference. Temperature pattern. As we move through, we see this cool down coming in Thursday here. Not super cold yet. This is close to average, if not a kind of typical cool down here. We're looking at 1 to 7 degrees below normal. This is when things get a lot more intense. Saturday the 21st, we have a lot of those greens popping up, indicating 10 to 15 degrees below normal, which is definitely a step up. And we have this very warm pattern sitting over the west there, which we've seen for most of December now, and we do expect more of it perhaps for early January. Things get colder before they get warmer, especially along the eastern seaboard. Here is Sunday the 22nd. We even see some magentas pop, or kind of like purplish blues, I guess is what I call them. That's going to be 15 to 25 degrees below normal, perhaps, for some of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Really, really crazy stuff. As we take a look at Monday the 23rd, we're starting to progressively warm up until we finally do, and that lasts from the 25th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 11th, 31st here, January 1st here, and then we start to cool down. Here's some low temperatures in here. It's not too aggressive as we mentioned on the GFS model, but this is definitely 10, 15 degrees lower than that peak of the warm up like in here. where we're very, very warm. So it's still a considerable cooldown from that point. The European model is a lot more aggressive with the cold. So we see, first off, this first one move in, which is more intense than the GFS model as well. So this is the 23rd. Look at this cold air. Again, purplish blues are 15 to 25 degrees below normal. The magentas there are 25 to 35 degrees below normal. That is incredibly cold compared to what's typical. And that hangs on through Christmas Day, but the 26th, 27th, 28th are a lot warmer, straight through the 31st here. And then we start to cool down on this model as well. There is some lingering warmth up above. I think that these models look a lot more aggressive with the cold when we look at the geopotential height, like we see on the precipitation portion of the video. We do see a good amount of warmth out west here. I think things would theoretically look a lot colder in the east if we saw this pattern fully set up. Now, when we look at the European weekly model here, this is the 17th through 24th time frame here. Colder in the east, mostly due to the kind of like 19th through 23rd time frame, and warm in the west. When we look at the 23rd through the 30th, it looks almost perfect for what the Climate Prediction Center is calling for. Cold along this area here, with almost everywhere else being warmer than normal. And when we look at the 29th, or let's do the 30th through the 6th of January, still quite warm, cooling down a little bit, but it's mostly after this point. Here is January 1st through 8th. We're starting to get cold air moving back in here for the southeast. And as we keep going, 8th through the 15th, we're fully back into a colder pattern. This model takes us right back into a considerably cold pattern. I just mentioned that the light blues are not that cold, but when we're looking at a 7-day period here, it's a lot colder, because typically if 7 days are 7 degrees below normal, you're seeing a lot of those like 15 degrees below normal, and some of them a lot closer to normal, if that makes sense. This is just the average of those 7 days. Here's the 15th through the 22nd, still rather cold in the east, not quite as cold though, according to this model. Then the 22nd through 29th, maybe moving towards a negative PNA pattern. We see this big pocket of cold air over the west, and a lot warmer, or at least closer to normal here in the east. And then for the beginning of February, it's a lot of the same. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. We took a little bit of a long-range look, talking about potential snowfall and cold air overall, as well as warmer times. Be sure to subscribe. We're going to be keeping up to date with this upcoming pattern. Again, cold through about maybe Christmas Eve, warming considerably 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, and for the few days beyond that. Potential for a colder pattern for the very end of December into especially the beginning of January is possible. It's not guaranteed, but we're watching the early signs from these models that are indicating that is a likelihood. And as we get closer, confidence will grow if they continue to show that. So we will continue to update you guys daily. Be sure to subscribe for those almost daily weather videos. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.